The flashing red and blue lights reflected off the oily puddles of the desolate Sunoco station. Officer Todd Garris rested his hand casually on his holster, a smug grin plastered across his face as he stared down the broad-shouldered black man pumping premium gas. Garris thought he had caught an easy target in this quiet Tennessee backwater, someone he could easily intimidate to pass the night shift. He didn't know the man standing perfectly still before him was Noah Huckabee, a decorated, active-duty Navy SEAL. The brutal reality check was about to begin. The dashboard clock of the beat-up 2018 Ford F-150 read 2:14 a.m. Noah Huckabee rubbed his eyes, the gritty feeling of a 30-hour drive settling deep into his bones. He had just finished a grueling 8-month deployment in the Horn of Africa, followed by 2 weeks of intense debriefings in Virginia Beach. Now, all he wanted was to reach his sister's house in Memphis, sleep for 3 days straight, and try to remember what civilian life felt like. The rain had been coming down in sheets since he crossed the Tennessee state line, but it had finally reduced to a miserable, freezing drizzle. The fuel gauge was dipping dangerously low, glowing a harsh yellow in the dark cabin. Up ahead, the flickering neon sign of a Sunoco gas station pierced the gloom. The town was Oak Haven, a speck on the map off Interstate 40, the kind of place where the highway bypassed the local economy decades ago, leaving behind a smattering of fast food joints, rusted agricultural equipment dealerships, and local law enforcement with too much time on their hands. Noah pulled the heavy truck under the harsh, fluorescent canopy. The station was entirely deserted, except for a solitary clerk, a tired-looking woman named Claire, visible through the smudged glass of the convenience store, mindlessly wiping down the checkout counter. Noah stepped out of the truck, the cold air hitting his face. He was dressed in faded tactical cargo pants, scuffed Merrell hiking boots, and a plain black hoodie pulled up over his close-cropped hair. At 6'3" and 220 pounds of lean, functional muscle, Noah cut an imposing figure, but his demeanor was always quiet, deliberately restrained. In his line of work, standing out got people killed. He slid his debit card into the reader, punched in his zip code, and began pumping gas. The silence of the night was broken only by the rhythmic hum of the fuel pump and the distant drone of a semi-truck on the interstate. He leaned against the side of the truck, letting his mind drift, practicing the box breathing technique that had kept his heart rate steady in firefights from Fallujah to Mogadishu. Inhale for 4 seconds. Hold for 4 seconds. Exhale for 4 seconds. Hold for 4 seconds. He never even heard the cruiser approach. It coasted into the lot with its headlights killed, slipping out of the shadows like a predator. It wasn't until the sudden, blinding flash of the cruiser's spotlight hit the side of Noah's face that he realized he was no longer alone. Noah didn't flinch. He didn't drop the gas nozzle or shield his eyes in a panic. His training had rewired his nervous system to process surprise with cold, analytical calculation. He merely turned his head slightly, squinting through the glare. A white Ford Explorer, emblazoned with the Oak Haven Police Department logo, sat parked at an aggressive angle, blocking his truck from pulling forward. 2 doors opened simultaneously. The heavy thud of boots hitting the wet pavement echoed under the canopy. "Evening," a voice called out. It was a sharp, grating voice, dripping with unearned authority. Noah remained perfectly still, his right hand resting loosely on the gas nozzle, his left hand entirely visible by his side. "Good evening, officers," Noah replied, his baritone voice smooth and utterly devoid of fear. Officer Todd Garris stepped into the light. He was a stocky man in his late 30s, his uniform a little too tight around the waist, a thick moustache failing to hide a weak chin. His partner, Officer Kevin Rooker, was younger, taller, and looked nervous, hanging back near the rear quarter panel of the cruiser. Garris approached with the unmistakable swagger of a man who owned the county lines. His hand was resting squarely on the butt of his Glock 19. "You're a long way from home, aren't you, buddy?" Garris said, stopping about 10 feet away. He looked Noah up and down, his eyes lingering on Noah's dark skin, then flicking to the out-of-state Virginia license plates on the F-150. "Just passing through," Noah said evenly. The pump clicked, signaling the tank was full. Noah calmly returned the nozzle to the cradle and replaced the gas cap. "Passing through," Garris repeated, exchanging a knowing glance with Rooker. "At 2 in the morning, in Oak Haven. Not exactly a tourist destination." "Heading to Memphis to see family," Noah stated. He didn't elaborate. He knew the game. Give them nothing to latch onto. Keep the answers short, factual, and polite. Garris took another step forward, violating the standard reactionary gap taught in police academies. It was an intimidation tactic. "Whose truck is this?" "Mine," Noah replied. "You got proof of that?" Garris asked, a nasty smirk playing on his lips. "It's just, we get a lot of stolen vehicles rolling down the I-40 corridor. And frankly, you don't look like the type of guy who can afford a $60,000 rig." Noah felt the familiar, cold shift in his mind. It was the shift from civilian mode to tactical assessment. Garris was aggressive, likely seeking a confrontation to justify a search or an arrest. Rooker was the weak link, his eyes darting around, uncomfortable with the blatant profiling, but lacking the spine to intervene. Noah knew that any sudden movement, any display of anger, would give Garris exactly the excuse he was fishing for. "The registration is in the glove compartment," Noah said. "My name is on it. I also have my driver's license in my back pocket. Would you like to see them?" "Yeah, I would," Garris said, unhooking the retention strap on his holster. "And do it real slow, slick." Noah moved with deliberate, exaggerated slowness. He reached into his back right pocket, using only his thumb and index finger, and extracted his leather wallet. He flipped it open, pulled out his Virginia driver's license, and handed it to Garris. He intentionally did not show his military ID. In Noah's experience, dropping the "I'm in the military" card during a hostile police encounter either de-escalated things or made insecure cops feel like they needed to assert dominance even harder. Given Garris's aggressive posturing, Noah judged it would be the latter. He wanted to handle this purely as a citizen, knowing his rights. Garris snatched the license. He shined his heavy maglite directly into Noah's eyes, trying to force him to look away. Noah held his gaze, his face a completely unreadable mask. "Noah Huckabee," Garris read, mispronouncing the last name slightly. "Virginia Beach. Well, Davy, you're a long way from the ocean. What exactly do you do for a living that pays for a truck like this?" "I work for the government," Noah said simply. Garris let out a short, barking laugh. "The government, right. What, you deliver the mail, or are you living off a government check?" "I'm a federal employee," Noah corrected calmly, his voice never rising above a conversational tone. "Officer, am I being detained, or am I free to go? I've paid for my gas, and I have a long drive ahead of me." Garris's smile vanished. The fact that Noah wasn't stammering, wasn't getting angry, and wasn't shrinking under his authority infuriated him. "You're detained, boy. We're running your plates and your license. Sit tight." Garris handed the license back to Rooker. "Run him. NCIC. Check for warrants. Check the VIN on the dash." Rooker nodded quickly and scurried back to the cruiser, leaving Garris alone with Noah. Garris began pacing around the truck, shining his flashlight into the cab, peering through the tinted windows. Noah stood his ground by the gas pump. He was calculating variables. Distance to the cruiser, 15 feet. Distance to Garris, 6 feet. Garris's weight, approximately 240 pounds, poorly distributed. If things went sideways, Noah knew exactly how to neutralize the threat without lethal force. A swift kick to the peroneal nerve, an arm bar, a controlled takedown. But that was the absolute last resort. He was a professional operator, a Tier 1 asset. Getting into a brawl with a small-town cop was a catastrophic failure of discipline. Got some heavy-duty gear in the back, Garris noted, shining his light into the rear cab. Looks like tactical bags. What's in the bags, Davy? Personal belongings, Noah said. They look like they're packed heavy, Garris pushed. You moving weight? We got a lot of drug trafficking on this route. Lots of guys from out-of-state moving product from the coast to the Midwest. I have no illegal substances in my vehicle, Noah said, his voice hard, leaving no room for misinterpretation. And I do not consent to any searches. Garris stopped pacing and turned to face Noah, stepping directly into his personal space. The smell of stale coffee and chewing tobacco wafted off the officer. I don't need your consent if I have probable cause. And right now, you're acting mighty nervous. Noah stared down at the man. I am perfectly calm, officer. You are the one pacing. The radio on Garris's shoulder crackled. It was Rooker. Hey, Todd, license is clean. No warrants. Registration comes back to Noah Huckabee. Vehicle is not reported stolen. Garris keyed his mic, annoyance flushing his cheeks red. Copy that. Stand by. He looked back at Noah, frustrated that his fishing expedition was coming up empty. Legally, the traffic stop, which wasn't even a traffic stop, just a consensual encounter that had morphed into an investigative detention, was over. There was no reasonable suspicion of a crime. But Garris couldn't let it go. His ego wouldn't allow a black man who refused to bow down to simply drive away into the night. All right, here's how this is going to go, Garris growled, pointing a thick finger at Noah's chest. I smell marijuana coming from this vehicle. Noah blinked, genuinely surprised by the audacity of the lie. That is factually impossible. I smell it, Garris repeated, louder this time, performing for the dash cam back in the cruiser. That gives me probable cause to search this vehicle. I need you to place your hands on the hood of the truck, spread your legs, and don't make a single sudden movement. The air grew heavy. Inside the convenience store, Claire the clerk had stopped wiping the counter. She was standing frozen, watching the interaction with wide eyes, holding her cell phone. Noah didn't move towards the hood. He looked Garris dead in the eyes. Officer Garris, you and I both know there is no odor of marijuana. You are manufacturing probable cause to execute an illegal search of my property. I highly advise you to reconsider your current course of action. Are you resisting? Garris barked, his hand snapping down to grip the handle of his sidearm. I gave you a lawful order. Get on the damn hood, now. The tension snapped like a dry twig. Rooker came jogging out from behind the cruiser, his hand resting nervously on his taser. Todd, what's going on? Should I call for backup? Suspect is failing to comply, Garris yelled. He stepped forward, reaching out to grab Noah by the collar of his hoodie to physically force him onto the hood. It was a fatal miscalculation. As Garris's hand shot forward, Noah's training overrode his conscious restraint. It wasn't a strike, it was a deflection, executed with terrifying speed and precision. Noah's left hand swept up, parrying Garris's wrist away from his body, while his right hand clamped down on Garris's elbow, locking the joint instantly. Noah pivoted his hips, using Garris's own forward momentum against him. In less than a second, Garris was spun around, off balance, and slammed face first into the side of the F-150. Noah didn't strike him, didn't punch him. He simply pinned him there with mechanical efficiency, applying just enough pressure to the locked arm to ensure Garris couldn't reach his weapon. Do not reach for your firearm, Noah commanded, his voice suddenly dropping an octave, echoing with the raw, terrifying authority of a man who commanded troops in active war zones. "Officer Rooker, step back and keep your hands away from your belt. I am not a threat, but I will not allow myself to be assaulted." Rooker froze in his tracks, his eyes bulging. He had never seen anyone move like that. It wasn't just fast, it was flawlessly executed violence, completely devoid of anger or panic. "Get him off me! Tase him!" Garris screamed, his face pressed against the cold metal of the truck, struggling wildly. But the more he struggled, the tighter Noah's grip became, immobilizing him entirely. "Officer Rooker, if you deploy that taser, this situation will escalate in a way neither of you are prepared for," Noah said, his eyes locking onto the younger cop. "Your partner attempted to unlawfully assault me. I am securing him to prevent injury to myself. I am going to release him, and I expect everyone to take a deep breath. Do you understand?" Rooker, trembling, slowly raised his hands in a placating gesture. Okay, man, just let him go. We're cool. Todd, stop fighting him." Slowly, methodically, Noah released the pressure on the arm and stepped back, instantly creating 5 feet of distance. He kept his hands raised at chest level, open and visible. Garris spun around, his face purple with rage and humiliation. He ripped his Glock from its holster and leveled it directly at Noah's chest. On the ground right now, or I swear to God I'll put a hole in you." Noah looked at the trembling barrel of the gun. The situation had gone from a civil rights violation to a potentially lethal encounter. Garris's finger was on the trigger. He was breathing heavily, his adrenaline spiking, completely out of control. "Todd, put the gun down," Rooker yelled, finally finding his voice. "He didn't hit you. He just pushed you. Put it down, man. There's cameras." Rooker pointed frantically toward the convenience store, where Claire was now visibly filming the encounter through the window with her smartphone. Garris hesitated. He glanced at the store, then back at Noah. The realization that he was being recorded seemed to pierce through his blind rage. Slowly, reluctantly, he lowered the weapon, though he didn't holster it. "You're under arrest," Garris spat, chest heaving. "Assaulting a police officer, resisting arrest. Turn around and put your hands behind your back." Noah knew that fighting an arrest on the side of the road, even an unlawful one, was a losing battle when guns were drawn. The battle had to be fought in the courtroom, not the asphalt. "I am complying," Noah said smoothly. He turned around, placed his hands behind his back, and interlaced his fingers. Garris holstered his weapon, pulled out his cuffs, and slapped them onto Noah's wrists with unnecessary force, tightening them until the metal bit into the bone. "You're done, Davy. Your life as you know it is over." "Search the truck," Garris ordered Rooker, shoving Noah roughly toward the back seat of the cruiser. "Tear it apart. I want to know exactly what this piece of trash is hiding." Rooker hesitated, knowing they still lacked a legitimate warrant or probable cause, but he was too terrified of Garris to refuse. He put on a pair of black latex gloves and walked over to the F-150. Noah sat in the cramped, hard plastic back seat of the cruiser, his shoulders burning from the tight cuffs. He watched through the wire mesh screen as Rooker opened the rear door of his truck. For 10 minutes, Rooker tossed the interior. He threw Noah's clothes onto the wet pavement, scattered his toiletry bag, and ripped up the floor mats. Nothing. No drugs, no contraband, no weapons. Then, Rooker found it. Tucked beneath the rear seats was a heavy-duty black Pelican case, secured with 2 thick steel padlocks. Rooker dragged it out and set it on the tailgate. Garris walked over, a triumphant smirk returning to his face. "What do we have here?" "A locked box in a drug corridor. Bring me the bolt cutters from the trunk." "Todd, we can't bust a locked container without a warrant," Rooker warned, his voice shaking. "He's under arrest for assaulting me, Kevin. It's an inventory search incident to arrest. Cut the damn locks, Garris barked. Reluctantly, Rooker retrieved the heavy bolt cutters. With 2 sharp snaps, the steel locks gave way, clattering to the ground. Garris stepped forward, his eyes gleaming with anticipation. He unlatched the heavy plastic clasps and threw open the lid of the Pelican case, expecting to find bricks of cocaine, stacks of dirty cash, or illegal firearms. Instead, he froze. The triumphant smirk vanished instantly, replaced by a look of profound, sickening confusion. Inside the case, meticulously laid out on custom-cut, high-density foam, was not contraband. It was a perfectly folded American flag. Beside it sat a velvet display box, currently open. Inside the box gleamed the unmistakable, heavy bronze star of the Medal of Honor, accompanied by a Navy Cross and a Purple Heart. Below the medals rested a bound, highly classified operational dossier, bearing the seal of the United States Naval Special Warfare Command, stamped with the words, "Eyes Only." Clearance level, top secret. And resting right in the center, gleaming under the harsh gas station lights, was a solid gold trident, the sacred insignia of a Navy SEAL. Officer Todd Garris stared at the contents of the box, his bravado evaporating into the cold night air. The realization of what he had just done, and exactly who he had just illegally assaulted and handcuffed, hit him like a freight train. From the back of the cruiser, Noah Huckabee sat quietly, watching the color drain from the officer's face. The karma hadn't just arrived, it had come wearing full tactical gear, and the fallout was going to shake the Oak Haven Police Department to its very foundations. The freezing drizzle continued to fall, hissing against the hot halogen lamps of the gas station canopy, but Officer Todd Garris felt entirely numb to the cold. He stood paralyzed at the tailgate of the F-150, staring down into the black Pelican case. The silence that had fallen over the scene was deafening, broken only by the ragged, shallow breaths escaping Garris's own throat. "Todd!" Officer Kevin Rooker whispered, his voice trembling so violently it was barely audible. He took a hesitant step backward, his eyes fixed on the velvet box. "Todd! Is that what I think it is?" Garris couldn't speak. His eyes darted frantically across the contents of the case. He recognized the Purple Heart and the Navy Cross, heavy, imposing symbols of extreme combat sacrifice. But it was the light blue ribbon adorned with 13 white stars attached to the gold inverted star that anchored his terror. The Medal of Honor, the highest, most prestigious military decoration awarded by the United States government. And right beside it, the gold trident, the eagle clutching an anchor, a trident, and a flintlock pistol, the symbol of the Navy SEALs. "Stolen," Garris rasped, his voice cracking. He swallowed hard, desperately trying to construct a reality where he hadn't just made a catastrophic error. "It's got to be stolen valor, Kevin. Guys buy this crap on the internet all the time to look tough. There's no way this guy is a SEAL." Rooker shook his head, his face pale. He pointed a shaking, latex-gloved finger at the thick, leather-bound dossier resting beneath the medals. "Todd, look at the name on the file. Just look at it." Garris leaned in, squinting through the rain. Stamped in stark, undeniable block lettering across the top of the classified folder was Operative Detachment, Huckabee, Noah A. Clearance, Top Secret, /SCI. The world tilted on its axis for Garris. The ID matched. The registration matched. The man he had just illegally assaulted, handcuffed, and shoved into the back of his cruiser wasn't a drug runner. He was a Tier 1 Special Operations asset, a decorated war hero, and someone possessing the highest echelons of federal security clearance. And Garris had just ordered his partner to destroy the steel locks protecting classified United States military intelligence. "Oh, God," Rooker gasped, stepping away from the truck entirely, peeling the latex gloves off his hands, as if the very air around the vehicle had become toxic. "Todd, you broke federal locks. You opened a top-secret dossier without clearance. Do you know what the FBI does to people for that? Do you know what the military does?" "Shut up! Just shut up for a second and let me think," Garris hissed, slamming the lid of the Pelican case shut. The heavy plastic echoed like a gunshot across the empty lot. Panic, hot and suffocating, clawed at Garris's chest. He looked over at the cruiser. Through the rain-streaked window, Noah Huckabee sat perfectly still, watching them. His posture hadn't changed. There was no smugness, no anger, only the cold, analytical stare of a predator watching its prey step into a snare. Garris marched over to the cruiser, his boots splashing heavily in the puddles. He wrenched the rear door open. The dome light illuminated Noah's stoic face. "All right, Huckabee," Garris said, attempting to inject a commanding tone into his voice, though it quavered pathetically. "We're going to step out of the car, and we're going to have a little chat. Man to man." Noah didn't move. "I am securely detained in the back of a law enforcement vehicle, Officer Garris. I will remain exactly where I am. Anything you have to say to me can be said on the record, in front of your dash cam." Garris leaned into the cab, keeping his voice low. "Look, maybe things got a little out of hand. The dark, the rain, the late hour. Mistakes were made, miscommunications. How about I take these cuffs off, we pack your stuff back up, and you get on the road? No harm, no foul. We forget this ever happened." It was a pathetic, desperate backpedal. Noah held Garris's gaze. "You manufactured probable cause. You attempted physical battery. You falsely arrested me under the color of law. And, most critically, you ordered the destruction of secured containers holding classified federal property. This is no longer a traffic stop, Officer Garris. This is a federal crime scene." "You listen to me," Garris growled, a surge of defensive anger momentarily replacing his fear. He leaned closer, his face inches from Noah's. "I am the law in this county. I can make your life miserable. I can drag you through the mud, impound your truck, and tie you up in local courts for the next 2 years. You want to ruin my career over a misunderstanding? I'll make sure you regret it." Noah's expression remained utterly impassive. "My commanding officer is Captain James Whitmore at Naval Special Warfare Command. By protocol, if a Tier 1 operator is detained and separated from classified materials, a distress signal is automatically assumed. I suggest you call your Chief of Police immediately, before the Naval Criminal Investigative Service traces my vehicle's transponder and descends on this gas station." Garris's blood ran cold. Transponder. NCIS. He backed out of the cruiser and slammed the door shut. He looked over at the convenience store. Claire was still standing by the window. She had lowered her phone, but the red light indicating she was still recording was unmistakable. "Kevin!" Garris barked, spinning toward his partner. "Go over to that store. Confiscate that girl's phone. Tell her it's evidence in an active investigation. Do it now." Rooker didn't move. He stood frozen by the gas pumps, his hands raised in a gesture of absolute refusal. "No." "What did you say to me?" Garris demanded, taking a threatening step toward the younger officer. "I said no, Todd," Rooker shouted, his voice finally breaking through his fear. "I am not catching a federal tampering charge for you. You assaulted that man. You broke into that case. I told you we didn't have a warrant. I'm not touching that girl, and I'm not touching her phone." Rooker reached up to his shoulder and keyed his radio mic. "Dispatch, this is Unit 4. We have a Code 3 situation at the Sunoco on Highway 9. I need the watch commander and the chief of police on site immediately. Expedite." Garris lunged forward, grabbing Rooker by the vest. "What the hell did you just do?" "I'm saving my own career, Todd," Rooker said, shoving Garris backward with surprising force. "Because yours is officially over." The wait felt like an eternity. For 20 minutes, the only sound at the Sunoco station was the idling engine of the police cruiser and the relentless drum of the rain. Garris paced frantically back and forth beneath the canopy, chewing on his thumbnail, his mind racing through a dozen different scenarios, trying to find a lie that could save him. None existed. The broken locks, the dash-cam footage, Claire's cell phone video, and Rooker's impending testimony formed an ironclad wall of evidence. At exactly 3:05 a.m., a black Ford Expedition with subdued ghost decals tore into the parking lot, its tires hydroplaning slightly on the slick pavement before coming to a harsh halt. Chief Thomas Miller stepped out of the vehicle. Miller was a heavily built man in his late 50s, sporting a salt-and-pepper buzz cut and a face deeply lined from 30 years of dealing with small-town bureaucracy and midnight disasters. He was wearing a waterproof windbreaker over his uniform shirt, clearly having been roused from his bed. He looked furious. "Rooker, Garris, what the hell is going on here?" Chief Miller barked, his voice cutting through the ambient noise of the highway. "Dispatch said you called a code 3 for a traffic stop. Somebody better explain to me why I'm awake." Garris practically sprinted toward the chief, desperate to control the narrative. "Chief, it's a complicated situation. We made a stop on a suspicious vehicle. The suspect was non-compliant, highly aggressive. He resisted a lawful order, so I had to detain him. During an inventory search, we found some concerning materials." Chief Miller narrowed his eyes, immediately recognizing the frantic, defensive cadence of a cop who knew he had screwed up. He looked past Garris to Rooker, who was standing stiffly by the gas pumps, shaking his head slightly. "Suspicious vehicle?" Miller asked, walking past Garris to inspect the shiny F-150. "It's a late-model truck getting gas. What was the probable cause for the stop?" "He was acting erratic," Garris lied smoothly. "Out-of-state plates, refused to answer basic questions, and I distinctly smelled the odor of marijuana coming from the cab." Chief Miller turned his attention to the rear of the truck. He saw the clothes thrown carelessly onto the wet pavement, the floor mats ripped out. Then he saw the black Pelican case sitting on the tailgate, its heavy steel padlocks lying shattered beside it. Miller's jaw tightened. "You busted federal locks on a hard case? Based on the smell of marijuana? Did you call for a K-9 unit?" "No, sir. He was resisting, so it became an inventory search incident to arrest." "Stop talking, Todd," Miller interrupted, his voice dangerously low. He walked over to the tailgate and looked at the broken locks. He recognized the heavy-duty, mil-spec hardware. He reached out and slowly opened the case. Chief Miller had served in the Marine Corps during Desert Storm before entering law enforcement. He knew what he was looking at. He saw the Medal of Honor. He saw the trident, and his eyes locked onto the top-secret dossier. The color completely drained from the chief's face. He carefully, almost reverently, closed the lid of the case and secured the latches. He took a deep, shuddering breath, turning slowly to face Garris. "Todd," Chief Miller said, his voice terrifyingly calm, "tell me exactly who is sitting in the back of your cruiser." "Chief, I think it's stolen valor. He's got a fake ID or something." "I did not ask for your uneducated hypothesis," Miller roared, the sudden explosion of anger making both officers flinch. "I asked you who you put in cuffs. His name is Noah Huckabee." Rooker piped up from the sidelines, his voice shaking. "Virginia driver's license. The ID matches the registration, and it matches the name on the classified dossier, Chief." Todd initiated physical contact. He tried to force him onto the hood." Miller closed his eyes and pinched the bridge of his nose, feeling a massive migraine blooming behind his eyes. He realized instantly the magnitude of the disaster sitting in his jurisdiction. This wasn't just a civil rights lawsuit waiting to happen. This was a federal incident. Without another word to Garris, Chief Miller walked over to the cruiser and opened the rear door. He leaned in, peering at Noah in the dim light. "Mr. Huckabee?" Miller asked respectfully. "Yes, sir," Noah replied smoothly. "I am Chief Thomas Miller, Oak Haven Police Department. Are you injured?" "I am not injured, Chief," Noah said. "However, I have been unlawfully detained, falsely arrested, and physically assaulted by your officer. Furthermore, your officer utilized bolt cutters to destroy federal property, to access highly classified documents without authorization or a warrant." Chief Miller winced at the clinical, precise recitation of the facts. It was the report of a professional building a watertight case. "Mr. Huckabee, please allow me to remove those handcuffs," Miller said, reaching for his own keys. "I would prefer the officer who placed them on me remove them, Chief," Noah stated, his voice devoid of emotion, yet carrying the weight of an anvil. It was a power move, a demand for submission from the man who had abused his authority. Miller understood entirely. He stepped back from the car. "Garris, get over here, now." Garris approached hesitantly, looking like a dead man walking. "Take the cuffs off," Miller ordered. "Chief, he's under arrest for assaulting me." Garris started to protest. "Take the damn cuffs off him right now, or I will arrest you myself for deprivation of rights under color of law. So help me God," Miller bellowed, his hand dropping to his own duty belt. Garris swallowed hard, his hands shaking violently as he leaned into the cruiser. He fumbled with the tiny key, finally managing to unlock the cuffs. Noah rubbed his wrist slowly, stepping out of the cramped back seat. He stood to his full 6'3" height, towering over Garris. He didn't say a word to the officer. He didn't need to. The total destruction of Garris's ego was absolute. Noah looked at Chief Miller. "Chief, I am currently en route to the Naval Support Activity, Mid-South Base, in Millington. I am scheduled to deliver a keynote address tomorrow morning to a graduating class of Gold Star families. My arrival is expected, and the materials in my vehicle are crucial to that event. We have a significant problem regarding the chain of custody of my classified dossier." Chief Miller felt his stomach hit the pavement. A Gold Star family event. Naval support activity. The PR nightmare was going to be biblical, but the legal nightmare was going to be worse. "Mr. Huckabee, I deeply apologize on behalf of this department," Miller said, his tone entirely deferential. "I assure you, this will be handled with the utmost severity. What do you need from me to rectify this situation immediately?" "I need my property secured," Noah said, his voice ringing with absolute authority. "I need the dash cam footage from Unit 4 sequestered, and I need you to contact the local field office of the FBI and the NCIS duty officer. Tell them a local patrolman has compromised a top-secret SCI container. They are going to want to speak with Officer Garris. Very extensively." Garris fell back against the side of the cruiser, his legs finally giving out. He slid down the wet metal, landing on the soaked asphalt. He looked at his hands, realizing that his badge, his career, and likely his freedom, had just vanished into the cold Tennessee night. He had gone looking for an easy target to bully, and he had dragged a sleeping dragon into the light. By 4:15 a.m., the sleepy, rain-soaked perimeter of the Oak Haven Sunoco station had been completely transformed. The local police cruisers had been pushed to the outer edges of the lot, replaced in the center by 3 black, unmarked Chevrolet Tahoes equipped with encrypted government communication arrays. The flashing blue and red lights had been killed, replaced by the harsh, blinding white of tactical floodlights mounted to the SUVs. Chief Thomas Miller stood by the ice machine, nursing a terrible cup of gas station coffee, watching his jurisdiction get swallowed whole by the federal government. Two men in dark windbreakers stood at the tailgate of Noah Huckabee's F-150. The taller man, bearing the bold yellow letters NCIS across his back, was Special Agent William Barrett. Beside him stood FBI Supervisory Special Agent Robert Higgins from the Memphis Field Office. They were not local boys. They were not interested in small-town politics or the good old boy network that had protected Officer Todd Garris for a decade. Agent Barrett wore a pair of white cotton archival gloves. He was carefully photographing the shattered steel padlocks resting on the wet asphalt before gently documenting the contents of the Pelican case. Chain of custody is officially broken, but the seal on the SCI dossier appears intact, Barrett muttered into a digital voice recorder. No pages removed. However, the container was breached by an unauthorized local national, initiating immediate damage control protocols. Barrett closed the case, secured it with federal tamper-evident tape, and handed it to a junior agent. "Get this to the Millington SCIF right now. Do not stop for anything." Agent Higgins turned away from the truck and walked slowly toward the back of Chief Miller's cruiser, where Todd Garris was now sitting. The irony was suffocating. Garris was now locked in the very cage he had tried to unlawfully force Noah into. Higgins opened the door. He didn't yell. He didn't posture. He spoke with the terrifying, clinical detachment of a man who dismantled lives for a living. "Officer Garris," Higgins began, pulling a small notebook from his breast pocket. "I am Special Agent Higgins, Federal Bureau of Investigation. I want to be entirely clear about your current status. You are no longer dealing with an internal affairs complaint. You are the subject of a federal criminal investigation." Garris looked up, his eyes bloodshot, his face pale and slick with nervous sweat. "Agent Higgins, please. I made a mistake. It was dark. I thought I smelled contraband. It was a good faith error in the line of duty." "A good faith error," Higgins repeated flatly. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a smartphone, turning the screen toward Garris. "Are you familiar with a social media platform called X Officer?" Garris squinted at the screen. A video was playing. It was shot from inside the convenience store. The audio was muffled by the glass, but the visual was perfectly, damningly clear. It showed Garris aggressively invading Noah's personal space. It showed Garris lunging forward to grab the unresisting Navy SEAL. It showed Noah's flawless, non-violent submission hold, followed by Garris drawing his service weapon and aiming it at a man whose hands were raised and empty. The clerk inside, a Miss Claire Jenkins, uploaded this video exactly 47 minutes ago, Higgins said, checking his watch. Because of the timestamps, the hashtags, and the sheer audacity of your actions, it currently has 600,000 views. It has been retweeted by 2 major civil rights organizations and a prominent veterans advocacy group. Your good faith error is trending nationally. Garris felt the bile rise in his throat. He leaned his head against the wire mesh, closing his eyes. "Oh, God. God isn't handling this case, Todd." "I am," Higgins said, leaning in slightly. "Let me explain the reality of your morning. You are going to be federally indicted under Title 18, United States Code, Section 242, Deprivation of Rights under Color of Law. Because you drew your firearm during the commission of this deprivation, it is elevated to a felony involving a dangerous weapon. That carries a maximum sentence of 10 years in federal prison." Higgins paused, letting the words sink in, before delivering the final, crushing blow. "Furthermore, by ordering the destruction of a secured government container holding top-secret SCI materials, you have violated 18 U.S.C. Section 1361, Deprivation of Government Property, and we are currently consulting with the Department of Justice regarding charges under the Espionage Act for reckless mishandling of classified intelligence. You aren't going to the county jail, Todd. You are going to the Federal Correctional Institution in Memphis. You will be held without bail pending your arraignment. My pension, Garris whispered, the tears finally spilling over his eyelashes. My wife. Please, Agent Higgins, I have kids. You should have thought about your kids before you decided to play tyrant on a dark highway, Higgins replied, completely unmoved. Turn around and put your hands behind your back. Across the lot, Noah Huckabee stood under the canopy, a cup of black coffee in his hand, watching the scene unfold. Officer Kevin Rooker walked up to him, stopping a respectful few feet away. Rooker had already surrendered his badge and gun to Chief Miller, pending the investigation. He looked exhausted, but the terrified tremble was gone from his hands. Mr. Huckabee, Rooker said quietly. Noah turned to look at the young man. Officer Rooker, I wanted to apologize, Rooker stammered, looking down at his boots before forcing himself to meet Noah's eyes. I knew it was wrong. From the second he walked up to your truck, I knew he was profiling you. I knew he was fishing, and I didn't stop him. I let my fear of my partner override my oath to the badge. Noah studied Rooker's face. He recognized the look of a man who had just experienced a profound moral failure and was desperately trying to figure out how to live with it. In combat, Noah had seen men freeze under fire. Some never recovered. Others learned from the shame and became the best operators in the unit. Fear is a natural biological response, Rooker, Noah said, his voice calm, no longer the authoritative bark he had used during the altercation. Cowardice is letting that fear dictate your actions when another human being's rights are on the line. You broke the lock on my case. You enabled him. I know, Rooker swallowed hard. I'm resigning in the morning. I've already told the chief. I'm going to give a full, sworn statement to the FBI. Everything Garris said, everything he ordered me to do. I'm not hiding behind the blue wall. Noah nodded slowly. Then maybe there's hope for you yet. It takes a different kind of courage to admit you were the villain in the story. You have a long road to earn back your self-respect, Kevin. Start walking it. Noah walked toward his F-150. An NCIS agent was waiting by the driver's door to escort him to the base. As Noah pulled out of the Sunoco station, he looked in his rearview mirror. Todd Garris was being shoved into the back of a black Federal SUV, his hands shackled securely behind his back, his career completely eradicated by the very arrogance he thought protected him. The sun broke over the Tennessee horizon just as Noah's F-150, flanked by two unmarked Federal Tahoes, pulled through the heavily fortified gates of naval support activity, mid-south in Millington. The juxtaposition between the dirty, corrupt shadows of the Oakhaven gas station and the pristine, disciplined order of the military base was jarring. Noah was immediately escorted to a private quartermaster's suite. He showered, washing the grime and the residual adrenaline of the night away. He changed into his service dress blues. The dark navy fabric was immaculate, perfectly tailored. He pinned the ribbons to his chest, the heavy gold trident gleaming above his left breast pocket, and finally he secured the Medal of Honor around his neck. The light blue ribbon felt heavy, not just with the metal it supported, but with the memories of the men he had lost, earning it. At 9 a.m., Noah stood backstage at the base's grand auditorium. The room was packed with over 500 people. At the front sat the Gold Star families, mothers, fathers, wives, and children of naval service members who had paid the ultimate price. Captain James Whitmore, a seasoned veteran with a chest full of ribbons, took the podium. Ladies and gentlemen, our keynote speaker today requires very little introduction within the special warfare community, Captain Whitmore announced, his voice echoing through the silent hall. He is a man who understands that true authority is not demanded. It is earned through sacrifice, discipline, and an unwavering commitment to the values of this nation. Please welcome Chief Petty Officer Noah Huckabee. The applause was thunderous as Noah walked onto the stage. He approached the podium, his posture perfect, his face a mask of calm, solemn respect. He looked out at the faces of the Gold Star families, seeing the grief and the pride warring in their eyes. Last night, on my way to this base, I experienced a situation that reminded me of a vital lesson, Noah began, his deep baritone captivating the room instantly. He didn't mention Garris by name, nor the gas station, but the federal agents, standing at the back of the room, knew exactly what he was referencing. There are people in this world who believe that power comes from intimidation. They believe that a badge, a title, or a gun gives them the right to demand respect and subjugate others, Noah said, his eyes scanning the crowd. But true power, the kind of power that the men and women you loved demonstrated, is entirely different. True power is restraint. True power is having the capacity for immense violence, but choosing the path of peace until violence is the absolute last resort. He touched the gold trident on his chest. We wear this emblem not as a symbol of dominance over our fellow citizens, but as a vow of servitude to them. The moment a person in uniform forgets that they are a servant and begins to view themselves as a master, they have disgraced their oath. Noah spoke for 30 minutes. He spoke of his fallen brothers. He spoke of the heavy, silent burden carried by the families left behind. He spoke of the necessity of holding the line against tyranny, whether that tyranny comes from a foreign adversary in a desert compound or from an abuse of power on a rainy highway back home. By the time he stepped away from the podium, there wasn't a dry eye in the auditorium. He had turned the ugliness of the night before into a profound testament to the real meaning of duty. The fallout in the civilian world, however, was swift and brutal. The video shot by Claire Jenkins caught fire on the internet, picked up by every major news network from CNN to Fox News. The hashtag Oakhaven disgrace trended globally for 3 days. The public outrage was nuclear, fueled by the sheer, undeniable visual of a racist, power-tripping cop attempting to assault an incredibly restrained, decorated war hero. 3 weeks later, Todd Garris stood before a federal judge in the United States District Court for the Western District of Tennessee. Stripped of his uniform, wearing an orange jumpsuit and shackles, he looked incredibly small. The courtroom was packed with reporters. The United States Attorney did not offer a plea deal. The defendant, acting under the color of law, willfully and maliciously attempted to deprive a citizen of his Fourth Amendment rights, engaging in physical battery and the destruction of classified government property, the federal prosecutor stated. His actions represent the absolute worst elements of law enforcement. Todd Garris was found guilty on all federal charges. The judge, citing the egregious abuse of power and the international embarrassment brought upon the local police force, sentenced Garris to 8 years in a federal penitentiary, to be followed by 3 years of supervised release. His police pension was entirely stripped, seized to pay the federal fines associated with the destruction of government property. His wife filed for divorce before his first year was up, unable to bear the public disgrace and the financial ruin. Kevin Rooker kept his word. He resigned the morning after the incident and testified fully and truthfully against Garris. Because of his cooperation, he avoided federal indictment, receiving only probation for his failure to intervene. Haunted by his cowardice, Rooker left Tennessee entirely. 5 years later, he was working as an emergency room nurse in Chicago, having dedicated his life to actually saving people, carrying the memory of the Navy SEALs' terrifying composure as a daily reminder to never let fear rule his actions again. As for Noah Huckabee, he never sought fame or public retribution. He declined every media interview regarding the gas station incident. The Monday following his keynote address, he quietly packed his F-150 and drove back to Virginia Beach. He had a new deployment schedule to review, a new team to lead, and a country to protect. He remained what he had always been, a quiet professional, standing in the dark, ensuring that the light of justice, no matter how long it takes, eventually finds those who try to extinguish it. The story of Noah Huckabee and Officer Garris is a powerful reminder that true strength isn't about raising your voice or throwing a punch. It's about absolute discipline in the face of blinding ignorance. Garris thought he found an easy victim to bully in the dark, but karma delivered a brutal reality check in the form of a Tier 1 operator. It proves that a badge does not grant the right to terrorize, and those who abuse their power will eventually clash with someone who has the courage, the training, and the righteous authority to tear their false kingdom down. If this story of absolute justice and immediate karma got your blood pumping, hit that like button right now. Have you ever witnessed someone in power get a massive reality check? Tell us your story in the comments below. Don't forget to share this video with anyone who loves a story where the bully gets exactly what they deserve. And hit that subscribe button and the bell icon so you never miss another dramatic, real-life tale of justice served.